just the early morning voice there. Hey, everybody, this is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
with the sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Kenny, what's happening there in Cleveland? How are you?
I'm good. Well, I'll pause with the Browns for a second. Something that's kind of interesting. Yesterday, so I don't know how much of this you've heard, but the Indians with their name change have run into a little bit of a snag because there's a roller derby team with the name Cleveland Guardians. So they settled the lawsuit so that both of them are allowed to have the same name. I don't really have much else to say on that, but I guess that officially means that they are the Cleveland Guardians. I don't fully know. Actually, let me check the website, see if they are. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird situation because like you would think that's something that's like one of the first things that you would do. And it doesn't really take that long to find out that, there's another team with the same name.
I thought I did read that. I think it was settled. So I would imagine a roller derby team. I didn't even think roller derby was still around. That was popular when I was a kid, I remember. But I would imagine a roller derby team probably is not making millions and millions of dollars, So I would imagine this was their opportunity for a little bit of a payday here from a team that probably is making millions of dollars. So I would imagine the old Indians probably had to cut a pretty nice size check for them to drop the lawsuit, is my guess. I think they're officially now the Guardians, the old Indians. I think, if I saw that right, because I did see that yesterday. That's interesting. You would have thought they would have done their homework, right? Wait a minute.
Yeah. Well, and apparently they like had tried to settle with them back when they were doing all of their marketing and research, and like apparently they lowballed them. So I don't know what that number probably looks like, but like let's say it was like $8,000, and you're like, well, the Cleveland Indians are worth like $1 billion, so I could get a little bit more than that. So it is just interesting. It'll be interesting to kind of see, because like it doesn't happen that often in sports where a team changes the name but they don't change their city. So it'll be kind of weird to see like that dynamic, because how many people are going to slip up and like be like, oh wait, Indians, oh wait, no, that's not their name anymore. So it's just going to be an interesting season.
It is. It is. All right. What is going on with the Cleveland Browns? Odell is out of there, no distractions. And is it more that just the Patriots are that good, which I'm starting to think that they are, or there's some dysfunction happening there in Cleveland again with the up and down? I mean, it wasn't even close. I think the Browns had the early lead, if I remember seeing some of the early scores there. But man, oh man, it just seemed like pure domination from the Pats after that. So what's the take there in Cleveland? Give us a Cleveland view.
Well, yeah, you were right. The Browns started first drive touchdown, going toe to toe with Mac Jones and the Patriots, and then they couldn't score and they couldn't stop him. I don't know. I think one of the biggest things with the Browns this year that's been disappointing has been their defense. Because like you have Myles Garrett, who's probably a front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. You added Jadeveon Clowney. You've added a couple of big pieces free agency wise in the secondary, which was horrible last year. But it doesn't seem like they've done a good job of keeping games close. And also a big thing that they were missing last week was Nick Chubb was out with COVID. And I think he's such a huge part of the offense. And I don't think the Browns really fully recognize that. And I don't know what the deal is with Baker. I could make the argument that he's too hurt to play effectively, but also I feel like part of it is that's just the way he is. At this point, if I haven't, I was listening to a couple of people yesterday and they were saying like, if you get if you have a chance to get like an Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson, or if Deshaun Watson is going to play again, kick the tires at him, you may want to just go for it, because it doesn't seem like Baker might be your long-term answer. It kind of seems like people are starting to sour a little bit more on him, but at the same time, like, you don't get credit for playing hurt if you play poorly. People will say you're very courageous if like you're dropping 5 touchdowns and 450 yards with like a busted shoulder. But like, if you're barely keeping on, then people won't really give you that credit. And maybe that's the thing with Baker, is maybe he just has to sit out. He injured his knee. He's already got a shoulder issue. I don't know. To me, for his long-term career, it might make sense to sit out the rest of the year. And I'm not even saying that because like, oh, I think he's that bad, but I think he needs to show that he can be healthy, because if the Browns decide not to bring him back, I don't think they will like just say bye, but if they decide to do that, it'll be really hard for him to find another job.
Well, wow. I don't. You broke it down. I don't have anything to add to that, and I don't follow the Browns nearly as closely as. And I know you're not a big Browns fan, but being there, you can't help but follow it. I don't know what to make of Baker. I think potentially, I mean, you just see that he has such great potential, but I think it begs for a couple of bigger questions, right? The injury thing. How far do you push a player like that to? And maybe it's just him that wants to go out there and play. If you're just too hurt to play, like you just said, you shouldn't play. But I also, when do you say when? Like, when is, and I don't think there is a really specific time, but, this is Baker's 4th year, if I'm not mistaken. Do you go into the 5th year saying he is who he is, and okay, we're going to ride it out and we'll keep him, or, he is who he is and it's not what we're looking for in our quarterback long term? There's a lot of teams that's had to make those decisions in the past. And you think about, I think one that comes to mind for me is the Dolphins and Ryan Tannehill, and how well, since he's gone to Tennessee, that he's played. They're probably the best team in the league right now. And
Yeah.
He struggled for, I think they had him for 4 years. The Jets made that decision with Sam Darnold. Darnold started off great this year, but struggled, and now he's hurt, probably out for the year, I think. And so I think it's a really interesting call, because you put so much. I mean, he was the number 1 overall pick, so you put so much into some of these draft picks, and you build a team totally around what you think their talent is, and it's hard. You almost have to. I don't want to say start over, because I think there are sometimes good quarterbacks out there that you can get to go ahead and fit in, but we've also seen teams just hold on to quarterbacks for way too long too, and they never seem to develop. Andy Dalton comes to mind. No shade on him. I think he's a solid quarterback, but he's probably better being a backup. And the Bengals rode him every single year to really mediocrity. They would make the playoffs, and so I think it's a bigger picture thing that hopefully the Browns front office, is equipped to really make that call. The Bears, the same thing. They've kind of, with their quarterback that they drafted very high a few years back, he's not playing.
Oh yeah, Trubisky. He's not on there anymore.
He's not even on the team anymore, right?
Yeah, he's with he's back up for the Bills, if I remember right.
Yeah, and so, but maybe that was a little quick. I don't know if he was 2 or 3 years, but maybe it's that 3-year period, 3-4 years. Maybe that's the right call. I don't know. The other example, real quick, and then we'll get to some other stuff that I always like to use, and this is from my childhood more than anything else, that I think is still the best example, was Jim Plunkett. And number 1 pick out of the draft, had a great college career at Stanford, and went to the Patriots, who were really bad back then in the 70s. They got a little bit better at first with him, but he struggled for 3 or 4 years. They traded him, I think, to the 49ers. He struggled there. And then he got cut and somehow landed with the Raiders and somehow, won two Super Bowls, with the Raiders. And he was just unbelievable. And at that point, he was probably in his early 30s, so he had quite a few years under his belt. Back then, the football players didn't come out early. So he wasn't really that young then, but I don't know. It's a tough call. It really is. And you have guys like, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, that are coming up on that 3-4 year period. And, now, teams have decisions to make. I guess that's why you pay these front office people the way you do, because it's a tough call. It's a tough call. And I think there's got to be some sort of decision on Baker. And maybe it's just he gets a pass because he was hurt this year. Maybe that's what the Browns do. But I have a feeling that the Browns, with the talent that they have, if they don't make the playoffs, they're going to probably do some changes at that level.
Yeah, I agree. And also, when it comes to when you have a roster that's assembled like this, it can only last but for so long. Yeah. I think one of the biggest examples I think of is the Ravens back when they won the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. That next offseason, he got that massive contract, which obviously he never really lived up to. But as a result, they couldn't keep their defense. They couldn't keep a lot of the other pieces around them.
Yeah,
so
Ray Lewis retired. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it'll be tough. And I think also, too, we say this a lot with coaches, but I think also in the NFL, a lot of teams get very impatient with quarterbacks nowadays. The Dolphins, if Deshaun Watson was not in that, he can and cannot play mode, they would have traded for him, basically kicking Tua out after a year. And remember all the hype coming from Tua, right in that draft period when he was drafted. It's just crazy.
He was one of the best college players of all time. There's no doubt. And, but has he had a chance to really prove himself? Have they totally given him the job and say, this is your team, and do that for a year? They seem to yank him pretty quickly. I think he came off the bench this past week, played extremely well. It's really, really interesting. It really is. So much rise in football on that quarterback position. It's by far more than any other sport, the one position. Again, you get that one superstar in the NBA, but unless you surround him with a couple of really good players, we see that all the time, then they're not going to win a championship. They'll be good. And, but football, man, so much rides on that quarterback position. So let's stay on football for a few seconds. You and I were texting on Sunday, and I just texted you these 3 words, Any Given Sunday, which was a really good movie, by the way. But, we saw Tampa Bay go down to Washington. We saw the Rams go down Monday night to the 49ers. We saw Carolina just come out and smoke, and I know that they were missing their quarterback, but Arizona, we could have made an argument that they were the best team in the NFL, but Carolina comes out and smokes them, probably pumped up with Cam Newton coming back. What did you think overall? And it was ran the gamut this past Sunday. There were blowout games like the Jets, the Dallas game was a blowout, but then there were these just shocking upsets, all of a sudden you looked at Carolina was winning 21-0. I'm like, what? So, what did you think about this NFL season? Is shaping up to be so interesting. What did you think about this past Sunday?
Yeah, another one on there, the Dolphins absolutely pulling apart the Ravens.
Yeah.
But it's weird. You mentioned the way that this season is shaping out. It seems like no one really wants to be the favorite this year, which to me is great because, let me just read off the top 5 teams in the NFC.
Yep.
You got the Packers, who are in right now number 1, number 2 Arizona, number 3 Dallas, number 4 the Bucks, number 5 the Rams. Would you be surprised if any of those 5 teams won the Super Bowl?
No.
So I think that's what makes it interesting. but also like it seems like every one of those good teams, whether you're talking NFC or AFC, every single one of them has had just an absolute dud. And like sometimes you don't necessarily see that. Like think of all the years that the Patriots were dominant. They wouldn't have like a week where they get blown out 30-10. Like they would usually lose a couple of close games, whether that's losing a game to Indianapolis or losing some of these tight games with like the really good teams in the NFL. But like it seems like a lot of these teams have just had a lot of duds, and it seems like a lot came last week.
Yeah.
It was kind of a weird week anyway, because like you said, there was a lot of like really just blowouts. The one I feel the most bad for though is the Lions and the Steelers.
Oh
The
my
Lions
God.
can't win a game if they tried.
Oh my gosh, I agree with you. That was excruciating, because they showed the rest of the overtime here because there was no late game on I think CBS or Fox, one of them, and they had I'm like, somebody's got to score here, and the poor Lions kicker, it wasn't even close. It was like a 53-yarder. It probably went only 40 yards. I was, oh my God. And then Mason Rudolph, I mean, he's a good backup, but boy, oh boy, he made just a couple of really bad plays in the overtime. Yeah, that was tough. I feel so bad for the Lions. They can't catch a break. They can't catch a break.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of the Steelers either. They're a good team. I know Roethlisberger was out with COVID, but even since they shouldn't have been tying the Lions, but that was another one. Here's one that I think that went a little bit unnoticed because of all of the upsets and everything. Something you've been talking about. There's a certain team in Kansas City that seemed to right themselves these last couple of weeks. Certainly righted themselves against the very vastly overrated Raiders.
Yeah. Remember when the Raiders were arguably one of the best teams in the league? They're not even in the playoff picture right now.
They're not going to make the play. I would be shocked if they made the playoffs. They got too much off-field stuff. I mean, the wide receiver, running into the back of a car at 150-something miles an hour and, someone losing their life. They had another guy that was arrested this past week. They've got, the Raiders are, even with Gruden now out of there, they just still seem to have this dysfunction to them that just carries over to the field for them. It's an odd franchise. And I used to be a big Raiders fan when I was a kid, silver and black, I thought that, and they were so consistent, but they just now are dysfunctional, and maybe they'll right themselves, because there's still a lot of football left. With the 17 games, are we officially now a little bit past the halfway mark? I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's so you don't know what they might, because they do have talent, but I don't know. But the NFL really, really interesting. So Gay, I think you were going to say something about the Chiefs.
Yeah, well, the Chiefs will hit their biggest test this week. You love this all the time. 4:00 game. They're playing Dallas, so that's going to be a huge game.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
But it also goes to show you, like, when a good team struggles like that, like they know how to right the ship. If it was like, say, a team like Cleveland or the Chargers or I don't know, maybe like the Vikings or the Panthers who got off to a bad start, you'd be looking at like a 5-12 season. But the Chiefs are good. They'll figure it out. And now they're back in first place. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I'll say this last thing on football, then we'll move over. The Chargers, again, this is where the young quarterbacks can be so inconsistent. Their quarterback looked like a world beater through the first, part of this year, and he's just struggled the last couple of weeks. And on the other hand, a guy that never gets enough credit, who I think has just been, because I think he's been with several teams now, but Kirk Cousins is a really good quarterback. someone, I don't know, this popped up on, I think, ESPN.com. Do you know he has 18 touchdown passes this year and only 2 interceptions? And, I mean,
Wow.
and now the Vikings are 4-5, which is not, all that great, but he definitely isn't the problem there. And to your point, they've got a good coach there who seems to be riding the ship. They got off to a really bad start. In the NFL, when you start 0-2, 0-3, it's really hard to dig out, but they seem to be digging out. That was a big win for them to go out west on the road to beat the Chargers like that. But Kirk Cousins is just a guy that never gets any. You never hear anybody when they say, hey, who are the better quarterback? He's like one of the top quarterbacks in the league this year, and he was last year too. So it's interesting how you don't really hear much about him. I don't know, maybe it's because he's bounced around a little bit, but he's a very good quarterback. So we'll see. This will be Chiefs Cowboys. Yeah, looking forward to that. Big 4:00, 4:30 now, right? 4:25 game. But that's I love. I'll take that over a good Monday night or Sunday night game any day. Hey, let's talk a little NBA. Another week goes by in the NBA. The Warriors stay hot. The Knicks righted the ship a little bit again with a really good win against Indiana. And Indiana's a good team. They've got some really good players on that team. And obviously Rick Carlisle went back to coach them. So I would expect them in the playoffs this year and making a run. So what were some takes on this past week in the NBA and specifically the Knicks? And talk a little bit about this because I know you watched this from afar a little bit. What is going on with the Knicks starters? It's like the bench is just like way outplaying the starters. So talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the NBA and a little bit about our Knicks.
Yeah, so it is interesting because I had kind of noticed that because I watched most of the game, the Indiana game, and it seems like the starters are like kind of meh. But like, especially like you got Derrick Rose, Obi Toppin's I feel like Obi Toppin's kind of been like that. He's not really that good, but he's a guy that'll fire up a team. But yeah, I don't know. RJ Barrett kind of has hit a little bit of a snag after like starting out so great.
Yeah, he was doing great.
He didn't hit a shot until the second half.
Yeah.
Against Indiana. I don't know. It also kind of seems like, now, correct me if I'm wrong, because like I've watched most of the Knicks games, but does it seem like Julius Randle's a little bit off?
Yeah, he definitely is, and I'm not sure what that's about, except that he's probably still adjusting to the role that he doesn't have to, shoot, 30 times a night now, not to win on this team. But I do notice that the other teams still think that he's 100% the guy. So it seems like every time he gets the ball, he gets double teamed, especially when he's down low. So I think that's still, I think it's a combination of a few things. I think he'll be okay. I really do. I think he's proven himself to me after these couple of years that he's an excellent player. So I think he'll be okay, but no, you're not off there. He definitely is struggling, but I think it's those two things.
Yeah. But I think overall it's still, this Knicks team looks pretty good. Their defense at times has been a little shaky, but I think they can figure that out. Like you said, I really love their bench. I think Derrick Rose coming off the bench works a lot better than him as a starter. Also, I love Emmanuel Quickly, like so much. I would probably get a T-shirt if I was getting another Knicks player.
He's fun. Yeah, he's fun to watch. Yeah.
And yeah, it just seems like this team is still trying to figure out a few things. I know Kemba Walker got the tech, and it seems like it's still kind of one of the main themes early on in the season is the changes that they've made so that you can't just like draw a foul, which I still kind of like that, but it seems like the refs are a little bit overcorrecting because there was a couple of like pretty hard contacts that Walker should have gotten a foul on, but didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe not a shooting foul, but it does seem like this team's got what it takes to at least make a run. It's still hard to say, oh yeah, this team is going to like make the finals because there's still a lot of really good teams. But I mean, I have the standings up here. I didn't realize this. Washington, is the best team in the East now. We're
That was
10-3.
that wasn't a good trade for Russell Westbrook, and I'm a Russell Westbrook guy. I think that he's just an outstanding player. I just love how he just goes. He reminds me of Allen Iverson in terms of he just hustles 100% of the time. But that was a great trade. I mean, to get 3 players the way they got for Westbrook, and I think they got a draft pick as well. I mean, I think for them that was a great trade. I'm not that surprised. And who is their coach again with Washington? I'm forgetting who, because I know Scott Brooks isn't anymore. I forgot who their coach is, but they also hired a good coach, and I don't know why it's slipping my mind. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I think Washington is going to be good most of the year. I don't think they'll be the top seed in the East, but I think they'll be a playoff team this year. And I've always been a Bradley Beal fan. I think he's really overrated. So funny, John Wall, I don't think is even in the league right now. I don't know if that's because he's hurt or just nobody has signed him. But I remember there was such a debate. Do you keep Bradley Beal or John Wall? Beal is just still just at his peak, and Wall has got to be still pretty young. And I'm just wondering what's going on with him. He might be still hurt too. Maybe why he hasn't signed with anybody. But
well, 2 things. Wes Unseld, am I saying that right?
Wes Unseld Jr. Right?
Yeah.
Is their coach,
okay.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And John Wall, he's still under contract with the Rockets.
Oh, he is.
But
okay.
He's kind of asked for a trade and has been sitting out.
Oh, he's been sitting out. Okay. You would think that he would be easy to trade, but he's got a huge contract too, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So Wes Unseld Jr., really, he's a testament. First of all, is his dad. His dad passed away last year, Hall of Famer, one of the best centers. He was only like 6'7" in an era where all these centers were like 7 feet. He was an excellent player for the Washington team, and then he was their coach for a while, but he was an executive also for a while. Didn't do great at the coaching, but his son, on the other hand, is one of those guys that really paid his dues. He came up through the organization as scout, assistant coach, worked in the front office, things like that, and he got a shot. Maybe part of it is because he's Wes Unseld Jr., but he really paid his dues. And, by all indications, you think he's going to be a good coach. So he's really put that team together nicely. Any other surprises in the NBA? In your opinion?
I mean, one that I kind of saw, which is kind of still surprising to me that he would say this. I don't know if you saw this quote from Steve Nash yesterday, that he said that his team isn't that good, but they are 10-5. So
I like what the Nets have done. They've righted the ship pretty quickly here. So why do you think he would be saying that?
Try to light a fire under them a little bit.
I mean, yeah. Steve Nash doesn't seem like a big, head games type of guy, but I thought I saw that comment, but then I didn't open the article because I said, no, that can't be right. I like what the Nets have done. I'm not a Nets fan, and obviously, but I got to give them credit. I like what they've done, and they've righted the ship here, and they're winning the games that they're supposed to win against the teams that they're supposed to beat. And so I think Harden will be okay. I mean, you don't hear anything here about Kyrie over the last, couple of weeks. And the deeper this goes and the more the Nets right the ship, I'm like, they're going to just keep it moving. It's really, really surprising. So the Nets, I'm glad you brought them up. And now I'm starting to really look forward to Nets Lakers. We always say this, and we never wind up watching these games on Christmas Day, but Nets Lakers, because I think they renamed that arena also, like Crypto something Arena, Staples Center, which that's going to be weird because that's been Staples Center since it opened. But I think they're christening it with Nets Lakers on Christmas Day, which will be a great matchup. I think the NBA season is going to be a lot of fun. I don't see anybody running it away with it in the East. I mean, the Celtics are okay; they righted the ship a little bit. Sixers, I wouldn't trust them. Simmons hasn't played yet, right?
Nope. That's another guy you haven't heard from yet.
Yeah. So you got Simmons, Wall, Kyrie. Either one of those guys, I think, would make a difference to a contender, right? If someone scoops them up, near the trading deadline or something like that, that's going to be interesting with those guys, when you think about those three. But I like what the Warriors doing out west. I think, quietly the Lakers righted the ship as well. I know LeBron had been hurt, which is surprising. He's like never hurt. But
Yeah.
I know he had been hurt, and the Lakers were still winning without him, which shows that they're a good team. Miami, I like also here in the East. I think they're going to be dangerous as the season, continues to unfold with Kyle Lowry, on that team now. So should be interesting. Yeah. You ready to get to some fun stuff? Let's get to some fun stuff. All right. So I asked you this question the other day because I got to thinking with King Richard, which I'm very, very interested in seeing. King Richard coming out, Will Smith playing him. And so that's obviously Venus and Serena's dad. Is such a great backstory to that. We don't have time to get into it. Maybe we could do another podcast about their story and maybe a few others. But you and I, we love to go to the movies to see sports movies or watch them at home together. But as I started to think about sports biography movies, because this kind of tells the story of when they're little girls and coming up, what would you say are your top 1, 2, or 3 sports biography movies? Now, I jotted down 3, so I don't know how many you have, and so I'll start it off. And so I would say my number 3 is, and I don't think I watched this with you, and I think because it had a lot of language, but the language was very actually appropriate for the movie, and that was The Hurricane, with Denzel Washington. He played, Reuben Hurricane Carter, the boxer. And what reminded me of the movie this week is that the other guy that spent 15 years or so in jail with him, John Artis, he died a few days ago. He was 75 years old. And but if you've never seen The Hurricane, it is just an unbelievable movie, an unbelievable story. Heartbreaking that he spent that long time in jail. His career got cut short. He never became champion, if I remember. He was middleweight contender, but he lost in the championship fight, and he wasn't even anywhere near, this triple murder that happened in Newark, New Jersey, or Paterson, New Jersey, one of those towns. But Denzel Washington, I think, just that was one of his best roles. He didn't win the Oscar for it, but he should have. He was nominated. But it's just a great movie. I thought that that was a great kind of biography because it started when he was kind of young and coming up, and so it all through his jail years and everything like that. All right, what's your number 3, if you have 3?
My number 3, I did have 3, so that works out perfectly.
Good.
Is Invincible.
Oh, wow.
With Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Giving the story of Vince Papale as like a bartender who only played high school football, went for a tryout to the Eagles, made the team, and was part of the team for a few years. I think was a really cool story. And then just also kind of like seeing that kind of like rags to riches type of thing. Because like every guy thinks that they're like that type of guy where, yeah, I never really played like college football, but like I got all of this raw talent. It's like one of those like really relatable stories there. So that's my number 3.
Yeah, that's a great one. I remember you and I going to see that in the movies. That's a great one. All right, my number 2 is Ali. And it took me a while as a kid to warm up to Muhammad Ali, and after he beat George Foreman, I was all in. But the movie is so well made. It's a long movie, right? It's over 3 hours long. Again, I don't remember if you and I have watched that together, but it's a long movie. It's probably a little bit more even than 3 hours. And but it tells his story from such a great perspective. And especially, they spend a lot of time on, the fight with George Foreman and Zaire. And Will Smith played him so well. It was almost like, he had his accent, the way he talked out, he had his mannerisms in the ring. And it one of those movies, with Ali being such a public figure, you figure you would know everything about him, but the movie gave such little tidbits and insights. You're sitting there saying, "Wow, I didn't realize that. I didn't know that about him." So I think as a biography, that's my number two because it really told his story from when he was very young, all the way through when he, regains the championship against George Foreman.
Hmm.
What's your number two?
I don't know if I've ever seen it, but
yeah, you gotta watch it. I don't think you have. I know we didn't watch that together. I think you were pretty young when it first came out, but yeah, you gotta sit down and watch that. It's long, so give yourself some time to watch it.
Yeah. My number two is Miracle. Telling the story of the 1980s Olympics men's hockey team. I really like kind of the way that they kind of went really deep into how they assembled the team that really shouldn't have won but did. And then also how important it was, and not just like for like men's hockey, but also for just like the nation in general. I thought that was kind of a really cool depiction of how they did that.
Yeah, they captured all that so well of the Cold War at that time with Russia and just really some of the backstory that we would have never known had we not seen the movie with the players and everything like that. I thought that was so well made. And a lot about Herb Brooks and his story, was in there. It didn't start like when Herb Brooks was a kid or anything like that, but they talked about his family and his family life and how kind of where he came from and why he was so determined to do this. That's a great one. Yeah, yeah. All right, my number one. I'm gonna guess it might be your number one as well because we did watch this together in the movies, and that was 42. Yep. The Jackie Robinson story. I just think that was so well played. Some of the facts as you read after, some of the facts were a little bit off, but I don't think anybody cared. It's just Jackie Robinson. It is just an unbelievable story, and it just had everything. It made you laugh, made you cry in some moments. And it just captured baseball at that time too, and some of the things that he went through. But I think the movie purposely wanted to be uplifting and not capture all of the dark moments, that Jackie Robinson, I'm sure, went through. And started from when, he was a little kid. And I think it was just so well made. And Chadwick just played him outstanding, just did a great job.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my number one too. So I also love how you kind of saw just the resiliency of not just Jackie Robinson, but also Branch Rickey. I thought like just the way that they did it was really good. And you felt like the emotion and the struggle that Jackie Robinson was going through. And it's also cool to see kind of like Vince Scully in his early years. I know it obviously wasn't him, but just kind of thinking like, wow, like that guy actually like called games for like Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah. I remember you and I both came out of the movie. We were like, man, that was really, really good. And it was just again so much that of his story that I didn't know. But I think one last thing I'll say on 42 was also Pee Wee Reese and a few of the teammates that came beside him, because there was a lot of the team that didn't want, they were like, this is a mistake. We don't want him on the team. But the movie did a great job highlighting the good and the Pee Wee Reese character who really came alongside him and kind of risked his career to come alongside him. It's just a great movie and so inspirational. All right. It's fun. Maybe we'll talk about best sports movies. Maybe we'll do a couple of segments on counting down our top 10, maybe 5 and 5 over the next couple of weeks, because there's been a lot.
That's a good one.
Because as I was thinking, I was like, okay, I want to put this one in, but it really wasn't a biography, And King Richard, I think, is debuting on HBO Max on Friday, so you should watch that. It's and we can maybe even talk about that if you watch it,
Yeah.
All right. I came unprepared for fun facts, but you've got some, so take it away.
All righty. Well, I have two. Um, I'll start with this NBA one. So Steph Curry, who I believe just passed Ray Allen for most three-pointers made ever.
Oh wow.
He's number one all time in career games with at least 9 3-pointers made. He's had 36 of them. He leads the next player by 27 games. James Harden has 9 such games.
Wow.
Um,
He's amazing.
so and obviously Steph Curry, first ballot Hall of Famer, guy's gonna easily, he's gonna walk into the Hall of Fame. But I think sometimes we underestimate how great he actually is. And also, it still pains me to think that the Knicks were gonna get him, but they were that close.
Who do we draft
My
instead?
next one.
Who do we draft instead?
Oh gosh.
Was it Shumpert?
No, Jordan something.
Oh wow, yeah, he's not in the league anymore.
Yeah,
he was with the Lakers for a while, and okay, yeah, I know who you're talking about. He was the big forward from Arizona. His name will come. First name is definitely Jordan. It'll come to me. Yeah. Oh gosh. All right, let's move on from that. But that's a great back on Steph Curry.
Yeah, Jordan Hill. There we go.
Jordan Hill. Yeah, decent player, but not a wow. Okay.
So next one. So this offseason is very interesting for baseball. I'm surprised that we've already seen a few moves. We can talk about that maybe next week. But
yeah,
this offseason, right now, there are 10 former Cy Young Award winners that are free agents.
10?
Yeah. Now, I'm going to give a bit of a caveat because, well, I'm going to give you the list here. So, 4 big guys that are former Cy Youngs: Max Scherzer, Clayton Kershaw, Justin Verlander, Zach Greinke. Those are the top 4. They'll get pretty decent deals.
Oh, I think
other guys: Corey Kluber, free agent. Jake Arrieta, who might or might not get a deal now or later. The following guys have won Cy Youngs, but did not play last year. But there's still a chance that they could get a contract. That's Felix Hernandez, Rick Porcello, your favorite guy.
He did pitch last year? Wow, okay. Yeah.
And then also another one of your favorite guys, 49-year-old Bartolo Colon. None of those guys have officially retired, but they are technically free agents. Last guy, he's not a Cy Young Award winner yet. We might find this out later on tonight, but Robbie Ray is also a free agent. So if he wins it, that would be 10 guys.
You think he'll win tonight?
I think he will.
Okay.
I think there's too much surrounding Cole, and also he had a really bad September. So the recency bias probably lost him that one. But
that's amazing. That's an amazing fact. I don't think that can't have ever happened before.
I'd be surprised.
That is really amazing. I think Felix Hernandez is probably still young enough to pitch, but he had a lot of physical issues, right? He never did play with the Braves. I think was the last team that he was on. Bartolo, wow, and he's still pitching somewhere, right? Bartolo, I'm sure he's still pitching.
He's in the Mexican League, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Porcello, I could have sworn someone picked him up. He wasn't. He was such a disappointment. Him and Michael Wacha that year, with the Mets, and I wanted him to do well because he's a local guy, but he didn't. That's amazing. Let me ask you this, and then we'll wrap up. The most interesting out of those other Cy Youngs that are really good. I mean, I'm going to put Kershaw, Scherzer, and there's one other, and Greinke to the side for a second. Verlander is the most interesting one because Verlander, I think, is only 38. So you would think maybe he has a couple more good years, but he hasn't pitched now in over a year because of the surgery. But all indications that he's going to be healthy and ready. Where do you think he would land?
There's been talk that he would end up with the Yankees.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I wouldn't mind that. Give him a 2-year, $35-40 million contract.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that. Now if you're going like 5 years for Verlander, then no, thank you. But
yeah, he's not gonna get 5 years.
yeah,
Anyway. Like, as good as he is, he's not gonna get 5 years. He'll
yeah,
probably get 2. Yeah, yeah. Interesting. I think he probably could still pitch. I just and he's just unbelievable in the postseason. He's one of those guys that if there's any doubt on the Hall of Fame, just throw his postseason numbers in there. So,
yeah.
all right, take us home, Kenny.
All righty. So this is Kenny Squared End
Kenny.
with Sports on the Positive Tip. Catch us for our top 10 sports next week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, guys.